Hello from another hotel room. So in this video I'll tell you how I organise a model shoot, and maybe it will be helpful to you if you're looking to do the same. Hello again. Hello from Romania. Hello from another hotel room. I don't always live in hotel rooms. Matt Osborne here again, Mr. Leica, if you follow the blog or Instagram or Flickr or anywhere else. It's my first time in Romania, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to answer one of the common questions I get, which is, how do I organise a model shoot? So in this video I'll try and break down some top tips, hacks, whatever the cool way of saying it is, give you some information on how to organise a model shoot, if that is something you're interested in doing. Where to start? If we backtrack maybe 10 years, at that point I'd never photographed models before, so I can try and show you how I've progressed, if that's how you want to call it, what I do now and what I used to do, and that should give you a better scenario as to what may work for you. For this video I'll assume you've not done model photography before, or you've done very little, so I'll talk about it from a less experienced point of view, in terms of you may be an amazing photographer at photographing landscapes or non-moving macro photography or something like this. You may have the best cameras in the world or whatever, but you've never tried to photograph people and you'd like to do so. That's the situation I was in. In maybe the early 2000s, maybe later, I'll lose track, 10 plus years ago. I used to do macro photography and kind of bits and bobs photography. So if you look back at my early Flickr photos, if you're really that bored and want to do so, it was kind of your new photographer standard pictures where you'd photograph something, one bright green thing, then a black and white thing, then a red thing, then a close-up thing, then a landscape, then people. It was just a mix of everything as I was probably discovering what I was interested in photographing. Most of my photography then became macro photography, which I really enjoyed at the time, which is basically close-up photography of, for me it was kind of nature and things like this. But then I kind of found myself wanting to take photos of people, and for me I've always been kind of quite quiet, and I was an introvert, so I didn't talk to people anyway, so to then have to talk to people in a productive way to take their picture, that was kind of completely alien to me. So how do you go about it? If you're in the same situation, how would you go about it? So what I did first was I photographed family members. Obviously they'll be patient to an extent in terms of letting you practice your honing your skills and practicing with your latest camera or whatever, and having someone to kind of point the camera at to start off with is really helpful. So I think first I started with family members, and then I was really fortunate to have an ex-girlfriend, Sarah, who bought me a camera for Christmas, and I guess if it wasn't for her and that Christmas present, I probably wouldn't be here now, so thank you, Sarah, big thanks. So I was with Sarah at the time, and so because I had someone close to me, again, she was absolutely amazing in terms of she'd let me take photos of her to practice my camera. So she'd be, I don't know, trying to read a book in bed, trying to relax to go to sleep, and I'd set up like some massive Octobank umbrella with a flash in it next to her head, firing these flashes at her face where she's like trying to read the book, and she's probably like but she didn't say that. She was very nice to me. But that allowed me to teach myself photography and people photography, and particularly lighting, over a period of maybe 1 year, quite intensively, of especially the lighting aspect. Again, if you search far enough back on Flickr, you'll find plenty of bad examples. So first, family and friends, partners, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, and then you'll get to this point where you then want to photograph different faces to make it more interesting, or to experiment further. So what did I do next? The next thing I did was I used to use a website called modelmayhem.com, which is a global website where photographers, makeup artists, models in each city in different countries register for that city. You register yourself. You put on some example images. Hopefully you've got a few, but if you haven't, it's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world. You say a bit about yourself, and then you basically use it as a networking site. It's like a very early way of networking. And you used to write to people and say, would you like to collaborate? You give me your time and I'll give you some free images. They used to call it TF or TFP, time for print. You never really printed anything, but that's what it used to be called, and it probably still is to a smaller extent today. So in the early days, there's the networking websites. That was way before Facebook was very popular and much before Instagram. I used that for an extent, and then I started to use agencies a little bit, model agencies. So if, for example, I was going to a new country, so I'm in Romania now. What did I do to find models in Romania? So first of all, I'd search for the city name. So I'd go onto Google, and I'm in Cluj. So I'd search for model agencies in Cluj. So say I'm going to Barcelona, you'd put model agencies in Barcelona. You'd then write an email to the agencies, check it's something, they're the type of agencies where the people are the type of people you'd like to photograph. Then write an email to them with a few example images, introducing yourself and saying, hello, I'm Matt, I'm coming to Barcelona for a couple of days. Do you have any models available to test? And what that basically means is, do you have any models available where you need some new images for their portfolio? And then if they say yes, you meet up with the model, you take their pictures, you give the agency the images. The agency then uses them for the model's portfolio. In reality, what happens in these situations is the agencies tend to give you the very new, least experienced, probably least popular models that they've got. Sounds harsh, but I'd say it's usually true. They're usually really new with no experience and no pictures or few pictures. And so it's in the model's interest, in the agency's interest, particularly to get them some more images and some more practice in front of the camera. So I guess it works two ways. It's not ideal as a photographer because they're normally not the best models you'll ever find. You'll find better normal, non-model branded people on Instagram most of the time. Not always. Sometimes you get lucky. So you can work with agencies for free if you've got a portfolio already. If you haven't got a portfolio, it's going to be less difficult to work for free. So if I just backtrack a little bit, what do you do if you've got no portfolio and you want to take pictures of models? I'd say the easiest way to do it would be to throw money at the situation. Everybody's going to say yes. Everybody has a price. You'll be able to offer money to anybody to an extent, and they're going to say yes to stand in front of the camera so you can take their picture. How does the pricing structure work? It varies per individual, but as a general rule, the more experienced they are, the more pretty they are, the more pretty they think they are, which sometimes you need to knock them down a peg or two. They may think they're the best things in sliced bread, but in reality they're really not. And how many clothes they wear. The more experienced, the more beautiful, and the fewer clothes they wear, the more expensive you're going to pay. The more the least experienced and the more clothes they're allowed to wear, the lower you'll pay. So if they've never had photos before and you're going to shoot them in the street in a big woolly jumper, hat, scarf, coat, and you can't see any skin, you'll probably get them cheaper than if you ask them to go to a hotel room and pose in lingerie. I'd say most models will say no to posing in lingerie unless they're very experienced and can see you've got references. So one thing I forgot to mention, on the Model Mayhem type websites, you build up references, which then allows models and photographers to see who different individuals have worked with, to check you're not a weirdo and you're legitimate and professional. That website's not so popular these days, but it'd be very difficult to invite someone to a hotel room to say, would you like pictures in lingerie, for example. I do it, and I do have success, but it depends on the situation. I'll come on to that in a little bit. So if you've got no experience, you're probably going to need to pay for models, or if you've got no experience and you want to photograph glamorous people straight away, I'd say the only way you're going to do it is to spend some money. You can photograph models straight away with no portfolio, but you need to start much lower down the pretty ladder. It sounds very shallow, very harsh, but generally speaking, you're not going to get a top flight model or the prettiest girl as they may be branded in a particular town or particular city if you've got no experience and no portfolio, because they haven't got the time and the interest to give themselves to you on the off chance that you might take a nice picture. They've already got lots of nice pictures because everybody wants to work with them because they're popular. So if you want to work with popular people straight away, you're going to need to pay for some equally pretty people to begin with to build up a portfolio, so you can, any then future models can see a similarity. They can see themselves in your pictures. If you shoot a stereotypical glamorous blonde girl and then you contact someone that looks very similar, they can see themselves in your image, and so they're more likely to say yes. If you've only ever photographed men and then you ask to photograph a girl in a bikini, she's going to struggle to see the connection. She's like, but all your other models have got beards. I'm sure there's some jokes there, but it'll be difficult for you basically. So you need to probably pay if you want to kind of fast track your way into model photography. And there's no point just paying a model, because if, say, you come into a new city, so say you come into Romania, if you're going to pay for a model, you're probably going to need to pay for a studio and potentially hire equipment, unless you bring it all with you, studio lighting, this kind of thing. And then even in that situation, if you get a model to say yes for a price and you've hired a studio, you will turn up and say, for example, you were like me and you've only got experience, I don't know, photographing landscapes or photographing bugs and insects in your garden with close-up lenses. This stunning model will walk through the door, potentially in whatever you've asked her to wear, some skimpy lingerie, a no game like, and then you're just getting fall to pieces. You're either going to fall to pieces, or if you're super confident, you're just going to try and get the number and be really weird and just like and like checking them up and down, and you will just weird them out so quickly that they won't want to work with you. Girls are not stupid. Generally, they'll be able to suss you out if you're being weird, so don't be weird. Top tip is be as normal as possible and professional as possible if you want to get anywhere with kind of model photography and people photography. There's enough weirdos out there already, so you really need to gain trust really quickly in this kind of industry if you're going to be working close with models, and you need to get the best results from them in a short amount of time. So how would you, if you're in a situation where you've paid for a model, you've paid for a studio, and then you either haven't got the confidence to even eyeball the girl to bring the camera up to take the picture, or you're having wrong thoughts or whatever, it's not going to work. I had no confidence in this in the beginning, but I didn't start with the best of the best models, so I kind of worked my way into it gently with that again confidence. If you want to fast track straight to good models, I'd suggest you book a workshop. So I'm not trying to sell myself. I'm not saying you need to come to Birmingham or London and book a workshop with me. You're more than welcome to, or you can do what some people have done in the past and fly me to your city, and I'll come to your city and organise a workshop for you and models in your city. But I'm not trying to sell myself. What I'm saying is, in your city there will be a studio already, and if it's similar to the UK, they will have kind of model days where they'll advertise on a particular date. They'll be inviting a couple of models to their studio and maybe 10, 20 photographers. And then what will happen is you'll have a professional model studio situation with good lighting and kind of somebody watching you in terms of the model won't know what to do, so she'll be posing professionally, or she won't be standing, she'll be able to help you basically. And you'll also have other photographers and a tutor helping you with your camera settings and with your angles and things like this. So from doing a few of these workshop days, what will happen is you'll be able to build up a kind of a mini portfolio. And then once you've got your mini portfolio of maybe, 20 pictures, ideally you need at least 5 to 10 different faces. You don't want 20 pictures of one girl, because that's not a portfolio, unless you are that one girl, and then that's their portfolio. It's not a photographer's portfolio. You need variety to attract other people. Once you've got a portfolio, then you can go after, and you can try to organise photo shoots where you're not paying. So I've never paid for a model in my 10 plus years, so it is possible not to do it on the cheap like I do. I like to think they get the value from the pictures I give them, so they're giving me their time and I'm giving them the pictures. So that's how I do it. Time for print. Once you've got a portfolio, then you can start to contact people directly and asking them if they'd like pictures. So how do we do this? So back to my example of Romania. First of all, I wrote to the agencies. Now you've got example pictures. Now the agencies will be able to see your work, and they're more likely to offer you models to work with, potentially for free. So that's a good starting place, because it takes the least amount of time. You just search once, maybe get 5 or 10 agency emails, send that same email to 10 agencies and wait to hear. So that sounds good, that sounds easy. Sadly, it's not that easy, because the problem is most agencies don't reply. Too many people already want to take. There's more photographers than there are pretty people, I think, these days, in that cameras are so automated now, everybody can just pick up a camera. They don't need to understand aperture or f-stop or shutter speed or ISO. They just need to turn it on and the computer inside the camera will take the picture. This gives everybody a much higher percentage of, pretty much everybody access to photographing girls. So you don't need any camera knowledge whatsoever, to be honest. You just put it in auto. You're not limited by your kit because the camera is mostly automated, so you can forget the camera part. So once you've got a portfolio, contact the agencies. If the agencies don't reply, what do you do next? What do I do next? The next thing I did was look on Instagram, and I searched for the city name. So I searched for hashtag Barcelona in the Barcelona example. You could search for hashtag Barcelona, you could search for hashtag Barcelona model, hashtag Barcelona models, hashtag Barcelona girl, hashtag Barcelona men, girls different words. And then what happens is Instagram will give you a selection of images of all the images hashtagged with that particular search word. And then how I do it is I scroll through all these pages looking for people that interest me that I'd like to photograph. I will then send them a direct message, and I will comment on some of their images saying, hello, I'm coming to Barcelona on this date to this date. Would you be interested in meeting for pictures? Please see my work, and if you are interested, please get in touch. Something like this. The stronger your portfolio, the more chance you've got of them saying yes. Does this work? Yes and no. What do I mean by that? What I've learnt from coming to Romania this time is it is a little bit country specific. So some countries, the people seem to be very relaxed and they'll see the positive in anything. So, I don't know, I'll use Poland as an example perhaps, because I go to Poland a lot and I find it easy in Poland. Maybe it's just my situation. But in some countries they'll see it as a professional photographer in town offering free pictures, and they're like, oh great, let's make the most of the opportunity. Yes, I would love to have pictures with you, blah, blah, blah. And then you meet and you have pictures and job done. Easy. Sadly, it's not always that easy. In Romania, what I found is similar to when I was in Dieppe in France last year. Slightly different. In France, the young people don't seem to use Instagram very much. So say out of 100 girls in the UK, 100, maybe 99 might be on Instagram. Probably 99.5. In Dieppe, when I was there, it seemed to be like, I don't know, perhaps 10% of the girls were on Instagram. And then of those, 5 of that 10 were set to private, which meant they don't come up in the search. So you search for girls in, let's say, Dieppe, where I went, and there's no faces. And it's like, where is everybody? So that was a particularly difficult example because the girls are either private or they don't. Instagram is not popular in that city, and so I had no way of finding people. So I found that really difficult in France. Romania is slightly different. In Romania, the people seem much more guarded. So some people replied to messages and said, "Oh, hi, how you doing? Thanks for contacting me. Yes, I live in Cluj in this situation." And then they'll see my images, and because some of my images are slightly sexy, I think they put two and two together and like, oh, he wants to take half-naked photos of me. And so then they'll just make a quick excuse like, oh, I'm sorry, I've just realised I'm out of the city this weekend, or I'm sorry, I'm working, or I'm sorry, the dog just died, or whatever. And they'll get out the conversation really quickly and they'll shut it down. A lot of it's perception. If they think that you want to take those sorts of pictures with them and it's in a country where they're quite reserved, it's not going to work. So luckily for me, one girl did reply and agreed to pictures, and although she was very wary after we got talking remotely on Instagram messaging, she kind of warmed to me a bit and kind of started to trust me a bit more. And so I was asking questions, why is it so difficult to find girls in Romania? And she explained that they're a bit more reserved, but they're also very friendly and very helpful once they trust you. And so this girl kindly sent me a link to a Facebook group for the city. So on Facebook, in a lot of the cities, there'll be a private or public group set up for model photographers and models and makeup artists, stylists, fashion people, things like this. Networking the same as it used to be on Model Mayhem 10 years ago. She sent me this link, and so it was a private group, so I applied to have access. And then I just said, hello, I'm in town for a couple of days. I'm a British photographer, hoping to work with a few local people for free. Can I offer you some free pictures? Here's some examples of my work. If you're interested, please contact me. And then I'd learnt from my couple of weeks of on and off Instagram of trying to get people via Instagram, in that I knew now that they were quite reserved. So I'd known this, all the pictures which I shared in my example portfolio on the Facebook advert were outside pictures, fully clothed, kind of more fashion style. I selected all pictures with a similar look, so I knew that they could see that I shot black and white, street portraits, fully clothed, with normal / interesting face people. I didn't show any slight signs of sexiness, nothing pretty in the slightest in terms of anything that could scare people away. And that worked really well. I think I got 8 to 9 replies from this, and I'm only here for 2 full days and a half day, so more replies than I need. They obviously didn't all turn into bookings because some people are out of the country and things like this, but it does work. So I used agencies. Well, if I'm going to a country, I'll use agencies, I'll use Facebook, and I'll use Instagram. That's my 3 methods of contacting people. Once you visit a city for the first time, if you then visit a city again, the second time it is easier because you've got your kind of first line of contacts. You can then go back to your first line of contacts and say, hello, do you have any friends or know of people which may be interested in pictures? And then they'll give you your second line of contacts. And so then on your second visit, you'll now have a second pool of people. So your pool of people in that city is now growing, potentially doubled. And so then on your third visit, it's obviously doubled again. And then if, like me, you get to a situation where you go to, I think I've probably been to Poland more than 30 times, maybe 40 times, probably Budapest 15, Ukraine 10 or 15. And I love going back to the same places because I have such a large population of potential models which I've worked with before, or people that I've asked to work with me, or I've asked to work with them. It's really easy. So I could shoot 6 girls a day in Poland for 3 or 4 days, and I still may only work with a third of the girls that I wanted to work with on that particular trip. And normally now I'm shooting much fewer because I'm trying to do more running and kind of exploring rather than just be shut in a hotel 8 in the morning till 8 at night against a white wall photographing faces. It's basically, I could have done that at home. Obviously I can't do that at home because I don't have those particular models. But what I'm saying is I'm trying to find a better balance. So because I'm shooting less, it means I'm shooting less models on each trip than I used to. It means that I'm meeting even fewer of the pool of people that want photos. So now the demand is outstripping my supply, if that makes sense, which is obviously an amazing situation because if one cancels, I can backfill them really quickly. If you go to a new city and you book in advance a girl for the day, and then that morning she'll ring up and say, she'll message you and say, oh, sorry, I feel sick or whatever, and cancels, you just wasted that whole day because it'd be very difficult to find another new person at short notice in a new city. So what am I saying? I'm saying it does get easier, but you need to be passionate with it and you need to be persistent. It's taken me a long time to get anybody for Romania. Lots and lots of emails, messages on Instagram, 30, 40, I think I've said. I lose track of what I'm saying. I contacted a lot of people and I invested a lot of my time trying to find people so that when I came to the city, I could photograph some of the local girls in that city. Why do I go to different cities? Each country will have a certain look. So obviously you get variety because you'll be having Polish girls living in England, you might have English people in Poland, or you'll have, I don't know, African people in Romania and Indian people in whatever. But if you want a better chance of a particular look, you need to go to that country that has that particular look. So if you want really tall girls, you may go to the Netherlands. If you want blonde hair, you may go to Sweden and like the light eye colour. If you want dark skin, you might go to the Mediterranean. Some of it sounds obvious, but certain countries have certain looks. Some girls are taller, some girls are more curvy, some girls are more slim in different countries. So I like to go to different places to work with different face shapes, different body shapes and things like this. So after 10 years I get very selective in terms of I'm trying to better myself each time. And that brings me on to something I didn't mention earlier, I don't think. If you want to work with someone very pretty, you need to have pictures in your portfolio of someone ideally equally or almost as pretty, because they need to be, the girl that you are asking for pictures needs to be able to relate to your existing pictures. So for me, I kind of worked up, as I say, the pretty ladder, call it what you want. I started off with people that probably looked like me but with long hair, and then I gradually worked my way up. I worked with some agencies and I got some lucky breaks in some countries. I worked with Miss Western Ukraine while I was in Ukraine. I worked with Miss Poland many times, a former Miss Poland. I've worked with Miss Universe Hungary, several different people, girls over several different years. And I know it's always superficial, it's just a name for some potentially meaningless competition that's obviously often nothing to do with how pretty they are. But what it means is it might give you the opportunity to photograph a face which is recognised by other girls in that city. And that's really helpful because they will then see, for example, Miss Poland in my portfolio, and they'll then think, well, if Miss Poland trusts Matt Osborne to take a picture, then I should trust Matt Osborne to take my picture. So then when you then write to them, they'll be like, oh, he's the guy that photographed that girl on the TV that won that crown, that Miss Universe or that Miss whatever. Obviously it's already superficial, but if they want to be model and they see, I don't know, their potential idol in your portfolio, they're going to be much more likely to say yes if you ask them for pictures, and they might even be kind of driven enough to contact you without even you contacting them, which is unusual, but it can happen. So what I'm saying is if you get some lucky breaks and work with some really good models, or if you pay and work with some really good models, you've got a much better chance of then working with similar models down the line. because, as I say, I think they relate to your existing images. One thing you need to, I guess, take on board is not every model is going to love your work. You may have worked with the best model in a particular country, I don't know, Queen or whatever, and all your photos are maybe black and white vintage style like mine, where you've not done much editing and no airbrushing and stuff like this. If you then ask a girl and looking at her pictures, they're all fully airbrushed, they're all in colour, they're all highly saturated, they might all be HDR, whatever. They might all be like edited where they've nip-tucked, so they kind of artificially shrunk their waist or made their boobs bigger and things like this. If that's the look they go for, there's no chance they're going to say yes to me for pictures, because why would they want a vintage looking black and white picture when all the rest of their images are in bright colours? It won't go with their work and it won't go with their interest. So when you're looking to work with somebody, look at their images. If you have got to the stage like me where you want to potentially do kind of slightly sexy pictures, you need to look at their profile. If they've already done this kind of work, they're more likely to say yes to you because that's what they're interested in. If they do, if you can see all their photos are like street fashion, where they're like walking across the street with a bag or in the heels and all that, and their interest is the clothes, they're not going to say yes to a hotel room shoot. Highly unlikely, unless they're looking to, I don't know, try some ideas or something like this. If someone's into fashion, you offer them fashion pictures. If someone's into glamour, you offer them glamour pictures. If someone's never had pictures at all, you offer them probably more portraiture, least scary pictures. So that's how I do it. And then, as I say, I think the best tips is obviously be passionate and persistent and put the time in, and eventually someone's going to say yes to you. Be very realistic. Don't go after people with 10,000 followers and 50,000 followers and 10 million followers, because they're not going to see your message and they're not going to want to work with you. Contact models to begin with that have a similar amount of followers to you. If you've got 100 followers, try and find a girl with 100 followers or a few hundred followers. If you've got 1,000, then contact a model which may have 1,000. Maybe they'll say yes. The fewer followers and fewer comments they have on their images, the more likely they are to see your message, and the more likely they are to respond and to follow up on a invitation to a collaboration. The more followers they've got, the more comments they've got, the least chance you've got, because they're highly unlikely to see the comment or message that you send them, because the message actually goes to a separate inbox. So bear that in mind. So that's how I do it. Be normal, don't be weird, and eventually it'll come good. And then I just built up my confidence over time. Started at the bottom, worked my way up, and I'm hoping to keep that line, keep working my way up. I'm not sure if that answers everybody's questions, but hopefully it gives you a few basics to get you started in terms of a few tips. If there's anything I've not answered, any questions relating to this that I've not answered, feel free to ask in the comments below, and I'll get back to you on help you any way I can. If you want to organise a model shoot with me where I organise models for you and then you meet and get to work with the girls, I can do that for you as well, whether it's in the UK or America or wherever you live. Nothing is impossible, let's put it that way. I've had people from America fly to UK for model photography workshops, and I've been lucky enough to be flown to New York to do model photography workshop, one-to-one with a photographer, and then I organise all the models. So it does happen. So I hope you found it useful, and in my next video I'll try and answer the other question that often gets asked, which is how do I pack for an overseas trip such as this one. So I'll try and share some of my low-cost travel hacks in terms of packing for the Ryanairs and Wizz Airs of the UK and cheap carriers of other countries where you have baggage limits. Okay, thanks for watching. I better get ready for a model shoot. Bye.